The price of Isabella Reyes's freedom was sealed in the ink of a cruel contract that constrained her to a man she had never met. In the wild expanse of the Colorado Territory, the year was 1875. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden haze over the rugged landscape, its warmth a stark contrast to the icy grip of despair that wrapped around Isabella's heart. She stood at the edge of a makeshift camp, the smell of wood smoke curling in the air like the twisted fate of her life, a life that, at this moment, felt irretrievably lost. Her Uncle Ramon's voice sliced through the stillness of the evening, sharp and unforgiving. "It's time, Isabella. You know what must be done." The tone brooked no argument, and Isabella could feel the weight of his expectation pressing down on her like a leaden blanket. He fixed his calculating gaze upon her, eyes that spoke of ambition built upon the backs of those he deemed expendable. Today, those eyes were set upon her, and reality stormed in, demanding compliance. Around them, the campfire crackled, spitting embers into the chill of the approaching night. The oppressive heat offered a paradox of discomfort, reminding Isabella of the flames of her own despair, a suffocating reminder of the life she was being forced into. Trembling, she grasped the fabric of her dress, the delicate stitching a mockery of her situation. The luxurious fabric that had once invoked dreams of love and future happiness now felt like chains, binding her to a fate she had not chosen. "Do not let your foolish sentimentality get in the way," Ramon continued, each word dripping with disdain. "This is for the good of our family. You were always an asset to be traded." His voice was cold, the steely resolve making it clear that her life was merely a bargaining chip in a larger game of survival. Isabella's heart raced as if trying to escape the expectation of her reality. The bitter truth lay bare before her. Her worth, defined by her ability to bear children for a man she did not love, felt like a curse. The thought twisted in her stomach, and an uncomfortable sensation threatened to spill over. Desperately she rose her chin, fighting against the tightening in her chest, determined to maintain her dignity in the face of such abject humiliation. The nearby campfire emitted a smoky odor, bitter and sharp, mingling with the scent of wildflowers that hinted at a world beyond her bleak horizon, a world where she was free. She took a shaky breath, forcing the air deeper into her lungs, yet it tasted sour on her tongue. "You cannot do this to me," she finally cried out, her voice breaking with the weight of her emotions. But Ramon's dismissive gaze silenced her, and she could see the impatience swirling in his eyes. "Your future lies with that merchant," Ramon pressed, oblivious to the turmoil churning within her. There was no compassion in his tone, only an ironclad determination to secure their survival. "You will marry him, bear his children, and restore our family's name. You have no say in the matter." At that moment, despair threatened to suffocate her. Each mention of her future, of her life as a mere currency traded for debts, felt like a dagger, piercing deep into her resolve. The campfire cracked, its glow waning into night as the shadows around her grew longer, more sinister. This was not her life, and yet it was being thrust upon her. "Isabella!" Ramon barked, snapping her back to the reality of the moment. The sharpness of his voice stunned her, forced her to confront the truth of her existence. It was a grim reality, a power that slammed into her like an iron fist. How could she be so lowly perceived, treated as a tool for restitution? Unable to bear the oppressive weight of her predicament any longer, Isabella turned abruptly, fleeing into the nearby woods. The air around her filled with the sweet scent of pine, and each step taken felt like a small rebellion against the crushing expectations of her family's demands. The trees loomed above her, their dark silhouettes offering shelter as she ventured deeper into the forest, where no one could gaze upon her despair. She fought back tears, keeping them at bay, refusing to break down beneath the stares of men who stripped her of her humanity. With each frantic step further into the woods, her thoughts raced, pulsing with the need to escape, to shed the burden of her name, her ties to her uncle, and the shackles that bound her heart. No longer content to be a mere echo of the woman others wanted her to be, Isabella's resolve hardened. The wilds of Colorado encircled her, whispering promises of liberation and possibility. Memories of her carefree youth flooded back, the sun-drenched meadows she once roamed, the laughter shared under the vast blue sky, and the dreams of a future not tied to contracts and marriages of convenience. With each movement away from the camp, she envisioned carving a path toward her own destiny. Yet, in those fragile moments of peace, another truth assailed her. Burdens of obligation still clung to her. No matter how far she ran, the societal norms that confined her would always loom like the pressing mountains in the distance. Isabella halted, her breath coming in quick bursts as she leaned against a sturdy tree, the rough bark grounding her. She longed for a time when her worth would not be measured by the fruits of her womb. As night fell, the world around her darkened, the air cooler as if inviting her to embrace the stillness. She pressed her palm against the cool bark, feeling its strength through her fingertips. In this moment, she found a flicker of courage blossoming within her chest, challenging her despair, igniting a flame she had thought extinguished. The forest, with its secrets and sanctuaries, was inviting her to plot a new course. Just then, a rustle in the underbrush startled her, pulling her from the depths of contemplation. Adrenaline surged through her veins, heightening her senses. The wilderness hummed with life, yet in that moment, her pulse quickened, awareness tightening around her as instinct urged her to remain vigilant. The solitary embrace of the trees felt precarious. She was lost, but more terrified of being found by the very fate she sought to escape. Despite the encroaching darkness, Isabella felt an unexpected strength mounting within her, a strength born from defiance and the realization that she still possessed the power to choose her own path. The wilderness around her pulsed with possibility, its whispers of freedom beckoning her deeper into their embrace. With newfound determination, she vowed to navigate the labyrinth of expectation that hammered against her spirit, to reclaim her identity from the fire, to rise from the ashes of the role she never wanted to play. She had to face what was coming, ready to carve out a future of her own making, a future where she was not merely a pawn to be sacrificed. With her heart set ablaze, Isabella turned further into the wilds before her, seeking solace under the canopy of night while making a declaration, silent but steady. She would not be defined by anyone's contract, but by the pulse of her own heart. This expanded Block 1 is now approximately 8,000 characters. I'm ready to move on to Block 2 whenever you're ready. The night held a breathless quality as Isabella walked deeper into the forest, her heart thrumming with both excitement and fear. Dawn had long since faded, leaving only the pale glow of the moon to light her path. Shadows danced around her, weaving between the towering pines that reached toward the star-laden sky. Yet she clung tenaciously to the flicker of courage ignited within her. As she followed Jasper Ashwood, the mountain man who had stepped unexpectedly into her life, Isabella felt a growing sense of purpose. He moved through the underbrush with the deftness of someone who had spent a lifetime navigating these wild lands. Each step seemed to draw her further into the heart of the wilderness, far away from the suffocating expectations of her family and the mercenary intent that loomed on the horizon. "Keep close," Jasper instructed, slowing his pace to accommodate her. His voice was low, rich with authority, and she felt an instinctual urge to comply. "The woods are alive with creatures both predator and prey. You need to be mindful of the ground you tread." Isabella nodded, her pulse quickening. Everything she had been taught about the world beyond her home, from how to be a proper lady to how to control her emotions, seemed trivial in this moment. She was here to learn, not just about survival, but about herself. "Why are you doing this?" she ventured, glancing at him as they walked. "You don't even know me." "Aye, that's true enough," Jasper replied, casting her a sidelong glance. His eyes gleamed with a mix of caution and curiosity. "But I see the fire in you, lass. It's a rare thing to meet someone who actually wishes to challenge their fate." Isabella felt an unexpected warmth wash over her at his compliment, a flicker of hope exploding in her chest. "You had no choice but to be shaped by the wilderness. What about me?" she asked, her voice steady but inquisitive. "What do you see when you look at me?" "I see a woman with spirit," he replied without hesitation. "One who has been cast into the world and dehumanized for the sake of men's greed." Isabella blinked at his words, a raw truth reverberating through her. "That pain can either break you or embolden you. It looks as though you've chosen the latter." "They do not see me," she murmured, the bitterness seeping out, echoing through the stillness of the trees. "They only see a means to an end." "Then let me help you find your strength," he replied firmly, guiding her through a narrow path. "Show you the ways of the wild, where you can create your own destiny." As they pressed deeper into the wooded expanse, Jasper began to instruct her in the art of survival. He guided her through the various plants, educating her on which ones could be foraged for nourishment, and which were to be avoided. Isabella soaked up this knowledge like a sponge, marveling at how the ordinary world transformed into a vast landscape of potential. "Look," Jasper motioned to a cluster of vibrant berries. "Those are service berries. The ones blue-black in color will taste sweet upon the tongue." While those, he gestured to a similarly shaped but vivid scarlet specimen, are poisonous. Never confuse one for the other. With each lesson, Isabella felt the shackles of her previous life begin to loosen. This knowledge offered her a sense of agency, not just over her sustenance, but over her future. "I will remember," she said with determination. Days turned into weeks, and under Jasper's guidance, she learned not only the skills of survival, but also to trust her instincts. Each dawn ushered in new lessons: tracking animals, building shelter, honing her awareness of the rhythms of the malevolent forces around her. With every challenge, every small victory, her spirit soared higher. They spent afternoons shadowing each other, Jasper teaching her how to hunt with bow and arrow, showing her the way to blend into her surroundings. Isabella felt a thrill surge through her as she knocked an arrow, the texture of the fletching against her fingertips, the bowstring drawn taut. The forest opened up to her with each step taken alongside the mountain man, a mentor who respected her autonomy, encouraging her to rise against the currents of despair. "Take a moment to focus," he instructed one day as they crouched silently in the underbrush, waiting for an elk to pass. "Let the forest guide you. You are part of this land, not apart from it." Isabella took a deep breath, centering herself in the silence. She became attuned to the wind whispering through the trees, the rustle of leaves overhead, the distant heartbeat of wildlife swaying to nature's pulse. Time seemed to ebb and flow as she became one with the environment, and she finally released the arrow. With a remarkable precision born from the desire to prove herself, it found its mark. A rush of exhilaration swept over her, a victory born from her own determination. "I did it!" she exclaimed, her laughter ringing bright as she sprang up, excitement overshadowing her previous troubles. "Indeed you did," Jasper acknowledged, a prideful glimmer in his eyes. "But remember, hunting is not just about taking. Give thanks for this life." From that moment on, Isabella forged a deeper connection with the wilderness around her. Each successful hunt was met with reverence. Each fruit picked from the trees was seen as a gift rather than a commodity. The lessons imbued her with an understanding that freedom wasn't merely the absence of restraint. It was the conscious choice to embrace life. On one particular evening, bathed in hues of deep indigo and golden amber, as they returned from a day's venture, Jasper turned to Isabella with a more serious demeanor. "You've done remarkable work, but true growth requires more than just survival skills. It necessitates facing your fear." "What do you mean?" Her brow furrowed. "Take a moment to reflect. You still hold doubts about stepping back into the world you ran from. You're scared of the very people who once held power over you." Isabella stilled, the realization washing over her like a cold wave. It was true. The fear of being shackled to her uncle's will or of the merchant lingered just beneath the surface. "I can't go back. I won't be a pawn again," she replied resolutely. The fire rekindled. "Then you must confront that fear," he said simply. "Show them who you have become, a woman forged by the wild, with strengths they never saw in you before." His words resonated deep within her. Months had passed since that fateful day where her uncle had dictated her future. And yet, the thought of returning to that world, the mere notion of facing Ramon and the merchant, sent tremors down her spine. "What if they tried to pull me back in?" she asked, the uncertainty trembling in her voice. "The past has no power over you unless you yield to it," he said firmly. "You're a survivor, Isabella, and they cannot see your worth until you show it." Strengthened by his conviction, Isabella felt a shift within. She was no longer the girl who had fled into the forest, lost and afraid. She stood at the threshold of rebirth, ready to challenge the status quo. "I will face them," she declared, her voice steady with newfound certainty. "I will reclaim my place." "Yes," Jasper replied with a satisfied smile. "There is no shame in the struggle. Rather, it is the courage that defines you. Now let's prepare for the next journey." Isabella felt invigorated, emboldened by his support and her own clandestine growth. In the weeks that followed, she and Jasper honed their efforts, their daily rhythms interwoven with the heartbeat of the land. They would train together, sharing stories over glowing fires, where she would recount the tales of her childhood dreams of adventure, mixing laughter with sorrow. Jasper listened intently, and in those moments, an unbreakable bond formed, stripped from societal constraints, forged by mutual respect, aspiration, and hard-earned trust. Standing at the edges of maturity, Isabella felt the fierce light within her glow brightly, illuminating the darkest corners she had yet to confront. No longer merely a victim of circumstance, she was blooming into a woman of resilience and grit, ready to take her fate into her own hands. She finally gathered the courage to consider shaping new alliances and building a life woven from the threads of independence rather than the bondage of her past. With each step toward her destiny, Isabella was no longer just surviving, she was thriving, and she would make sure the world recognized her strength. This expanded Block 2 should meet your requested character count. I am ready to continue with Block 3 whenever you are ready. As dawn broke over the mountain horizon, golden rays spilling across the land like liquid light, Isabella stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart pounding in her chest. The verdant wilderness that had nurtured her spirit for weeks now seemed both comforting and intimidating. Today was the day she would reclaim her place in a world that once sought to define her by the chains of expectation. With each step, she felt the strength of the forest pulsing in her veins, a bond that reminded her of who she had become. "Isabella," Jasper called from behind, his voice deep and steady. "You ready?" She turned back to meet his gaze, finding support written across his weathered features. "I am," she replied, her conviction unwavering. "I won't be cast aside again." Jasper nodded, a flicker of pride evident in his expression. "Then let's not waste time." As he moved towards her, the mountain man had an air of determination that inspired her, filling her with the courage needed to take on the world she was entering once more. They traversed through the woods toward town, the ground beneath them shrouded in dewy grass and fallen leaves, vibrant colors awakening with the sun's embrace. Just as they reached the outskirts of the forest, Isabella paused, taking a moment to collect her thoughts and steel herself for the journey ahead. "Remember to walk with confidence," Jasper advised, standing beside her. "Let them see the strength you carry. You are not the girl who fled. You are a woman of substance." "Yes, a woman who knows her worth," Isabella affirmed, feeling the warmth of his words wrapping around her like armor. "Thank you for believing in me." With one last shared look of encouragement, they stepped out from the trees and into the town square, bustling with life. The sun shone brightly on the dirt roads where vendors set up stalls, their colorful wares beckoning from beneath awnings. Laughter mixed with the clattering of horses' hooves and the murmur of townsfolk deep in conversation that resonated around her. Yet, amidst the flurry of activity, Isabella felt a familiar knot tightening in her stomach. Memories flooded back, echoes of the way others had treated her. The derision cast her way like stones, a cascade of moments when she had been silenced, demeaned. The warmth of the sun felt distant beneath the weight of those recollections, but she was determined to stand tall. "Keep looking ahead," Jasper said, sensing her shift in focus. "You control how they see you." With a deep breath, Isabella squared her shoulders and walked into the thrumming heart of the town. The stares of curious townsfolk were instant and palpable, whispers trailing in her wake as she moved purposefully through the market square. Frustration surged within her. It was a feeling she knew too well, but it was met with an unfamiliar fire, the urge to rise above their perceptions. She held her chin high and focused on the path ahead, the shadows of her past dissipating in the face of the woman she had become. "Isabella!" The voice cut through the air like a knife. It was Ramon, her uncle, and he stood amidst a cluster of townspeople, a smile plastered on his face that didn't reach his eyes. He stepped forward, his demeanor deceptively calm. "I knew you'd return, though I had hoped you would choose better company than him." He gestured disdainfully towards Jasper, who remained steadfast at Isabella's side. "I don't choose to associate with you anymore, Ramon," Isabella replied, her voice measured but unyielding. "I'm no longer the girl you can manipulate." "Is that so?" Ramon sneered, stepping closer, his eyes narrowing. "Do you think running away gives you strength? You cannot escape your future, child. You are still bound to your obligations." "No," Isabella said firmly, her heart racing but her voice holding firm. "I will not live as a pawn in your game. I know who I am now, and I refuse to be defined by your expectations." Around them, the townspeople quieted, their gazes lingering, some in shock, others in skepticism. Slowly the murmur of conversation faded, creating an intense stillness in the air, all eyes fixed on her. "Enough of this foolishness," Ramon snapped, attempting to regain control over the scene. "You will do as I say, whether you have returned or not. Men like him," he nodded dismissively towards Jasper, "cannot protect you when your blood ties bind you." "No more," Jasper interjected, stepping forward. "Isabella is not your possession to command any longer. She chooses her own path, and I stand beside her." Ramon turned a disdainful glare on Jasper. You think you can teach this girl a thing or two about life out here? Look at you, a mountain man, claiming to protect her, but you know your kind thrives on chaos and wildness. Wildness can be strength, Jasper replied evenly. Embracing one's true self is the only way to navigate this life, something you've done nothing but suppress in her. A heated tension crackled between them, and for a moment, the world around Isabella felt suspended in time. People whispered among themselves, their eyes darting between Ramon and Jasper, gauging the power struggle that unfolded. Isabella seized the moment, finding her voice rising above the crowd. You know nothing about me, Ramon. I have grown far beneath the shadows you once cast. You think you can intimidate me into submission, but I am not the same girl. The strength of the wilderness courses through my veins now. Her passionate proclamation drew gasps from onlookers, the fire in her words igniting something deep within them, a faint flicker of hope and rebellion against the oppressive hold Ramon had over others. Hope is a dangerous thing, child, Ramon warned, his sneer darkening as he grasped for domination. Foolishness only begets trouble. Is it foolishness to take control of my future? She shot back, grounding herself in the support and wisdom Jasper had provided. It takes no courage to remain shackled by the past, Ramon. My life is mine to live, not yours to dictate. This was her moment, a culmination of the days spent in the wilderness, learning what it meant to be free. She would not shy away from confronting her truth, despite the fear lurking in the corners of her mind. Do you see this? She continued, pointing to the many eyes watching her. I am not alone anymore. The world is shifting, and there are those who choose to stand and fight not just for themselves, but for each other. I am one of them. As she spoke, the energy of the crowd began to change. Murmurs of agreement flowed through the air. Jaw set and fists clenched, she met Ramon's gaze, a defiant fire igniting between them. Do you dare to threaten me? I understand fear now, Isabella pressed, pressing through the barrier he posed. That darkness no longer has a hold on me. I am free, and nothing you take from me can compare to the power I've found within. At that moment, Isabella saw the glimmer of doubt flicker in Ramon's eyes, his bravado faltering. The tide of sentiment turned, whispers rising as empathy mingled with respect began to ripple through the onlookers. You cannot win over me with words or bold declarations, Isabella, Ramon hissed, attempting to regain authority but faltering against the energy surrounding her. I will make sure of that. But I am already winning, Isabella declared, her voice unwavering. The world has awakened, and I forge my own destiny. Jasper placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, a grounding influence against Ramon's aggression. Listen to her, he urged the townsfolk as he took a step forward. Witness her strength, the evolution of a true spirit. Others have fought for their freedom, and they will do it again. The crowd, stirred to life by the growing movement around them, began to echo Isabella's fierce determination. The realization surged. They no longer had to stand idly by, bound by old rituals and oppressive traditions. Isabella, a voice cried from the crowd. An old friend, someone from her childhood, stepping forward. We stand with you. We can make a new future. Isabella looked around, meeting the eyes of those who had witnessed her struggles and triumphs. Her heart swelled as the energy shifted, the weight of generations lifting. Hope sparked in the air, electric and invigorating. With renewed confidence, she turned back to Ramon. You can either stand with us or remain shackled to your own fear, she challenged, narrowing the space between them. But know that I refuse to be anyone's pawn. I will fight for this, my life and the lives of those who dare dream of freedom. Caught within the fiery tempest of the townsfolk's support, Ramon shifted uneasily, his earlier bravado faltering. It was a moment of vulnerability that flickered across his features, but quickly disappeared, replaced by scorn. You think you can sway the crowd and make them turn against their own? You're deluded. No, Isabella said firmly, her heart steady and her resolve solid. The only one deluded is you. The truth has begun to surface, and it will not be buried again. As the crowd erupted into murmurs of agreement and fervor, the tide of rebellion surged forward, shadows of the past melting away. Ramon took a step back, ostensibly anger flashing across his face, and in that moment, Isabella seized the opportunity. With a final glance toward Jasper, she raised her chin defiantly. The community surged forward, a chorus of voices rising like a tide, echoing through the streets and drowning out Ramon's controlling cries. Together we stand, they shouted, uniting around Isabella's conviction, a movement forged from power, solidarity, and renewed hope. Isabella's heart raced, an exhilarating rush replacing the fear she'd carried with her. She was no longer alone. She had woven her story into something much larger, a tapestry of dreams interlaced with vivid hopes. The sound of their voices rang through her like a symphony of liberation. "Let us reclaim our worth," she called to the crowd, her spirit ignited anew. "This is our land, our choices, and our lives. No longer locked away in fear, we will rise." The energy swept through the square, igniting a flame of revolt, emboldening the spirit of every voice ready to stand beside her. Around her, the townsfolk formed an unbroken line, ready to rise against the oppressive whispers of the past. And at that moment, Isabella knew. She had not only reclaimed her voice, but had become a beacon of courage and resilience, lighting the way for many who suffered in silence. Beneath the unyielding sky, a new era was dawning, one built upon truth, strength, and independence. She had learned from the wilderness, and her spirit had thrived. Now, she would carve a path that would lead not just to her personal destiny, but would resonate with hope for countless others who had long been silenced. "Together!" they called, all voices raised, ready to make their stand with Isabella, the embodiment of strength, the dawn of a new beginning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the town, Isabella stood at the forefront of the crowd, her heart a drumbeat of determination. The energy pulsating around her felt electric, a palpable charge that connected everyone gathered, their hopes, struggles, and newfound resolve binding them together like a tapestry woven with threads of resilience. "Together we are unbreakable!" Isabella shouted, her voice echoing through the square, amplifying the unity that had exploded within the hearts of the townsfolk. She saw faces light with conviction, eyes glimmering with possibility. This was not just her fight. It was shared, a mosaic of dreams waiting to be fulfilled. "Isabella!" a voice cried from the crowd, a familiar face breaking through the throng. It was Lily, her childhood friend, who had always believed in her, even when Isabella herself had faltered. "We're with you! We want to forge a new path!" Isabella smiled back, warming with the recognition of camaraderie. "Then let us show them what we can build together," she replied, her spirit soaring with the backing of those who desired change. Suddenly Ramon seemed to regroup, his simmering anger morphing into desperation. "You're a fool, Isabella. You think you can inspire change with empty words? You are misguided, and this town will suffer for it. Let them suffer under the weight of our truth," she challenged, raising her voice. "Ramon, you may think you understand power, but you have only ever wielded fear. Today we choose freedom. We choose our future." The tide began to shift as the crowd rallied behind her words, murmurs of agreement sharpening into a unified voice. People began to step forward, aligning their belief in her vision with each step. They were transforming, a sea of rebellion rising against the oppressive status quo, and it was intoxicating. From the back of the crowd emerged Mr. Thompson, a respected elder in the community known for his wisdom and fairness. "Isabella speaks the truth of us all," he declared, his voice steady and deep, reverberating with honesty. "It is time to dismantle the chains of fear we've carried for too long. Only together can we build a future that honors each of us." Cheers erupted, and Isabella could see whispers of hope igniting among the crowd, unearthing the glimmers of ambition within them. They were beginning to believe, just as she had. "I know this town," Mr. Thompson continued, his gaze sweeping across the scattered faces. "And I know what we've endured, the poverty of spirit, the demands of our duties suffocating our hearts. But we cannot continue bound to a tyrant for the sake of comfort. It is our duty to forge a new future for ourselves, our children, and those who want better for their lives." The crowd roared in approval, their voices intertwining into a symphony of freedom. "What do you want?" Isabella asked, her heart light with possibility as she scanned the sea of faces before her, each one more revitalized than the last. "Freedom!" erupted the voices. "Change! Let's take back what is ours!" a woman shouted, her own cries echoing those of Isabella's heart. "Let's build a community that nurtures!" Another voice, a man's, bellowed, eager to contribute to this newfound momentum. "The time is now," Isabella declared, her stance strong as she took in the growing movement around her. Flashes of emotion coursed through her, the memories of the pain and struggles flooding back. No longer will we allow fear to run rampant through our lives. Let's stand for what we believe in. Let's root out the corruption that has kept us shackled. With each word, she could feel their conviction solidifying into a mighty force. A rush surged through her, the warmth of newfound hope igniting not only her spirit, but the very spirits of those who had once felt powerless. We stand for our independence, for our rights, to speak our truths, and to be heard. Isabella continued, passion fueling her declarations. Together we will rebuild, for we are no longer a community of slaves to expectation. We are a family who fights for what is just. The people began to chant, an unstoppable rhythm filling the air with enthusiasm. Isabella! 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 The name flowed through the crowd like a lifeline, each shout an affirmation that this was more than a simple rebellion. It was a movement ignited by conviction, laughter, and the dreams they dared to share aloud. In an electric moment, Ramon's fury escalated. "You won't do this! You will fail!" he screeched, desperation painting his voice as he attempted to regain control over the shifting tides. But the tide was no longer his to manipulate. "You will not dictate our lives any longer," Isabella shouted back, each word a steady hammer driving nails into his facade. "Your threats have lost their power." Drawing strength from the passion swelling around her, she called out again. "Ramon, you see us as pawns, but we refuse to be manipulated any longer. We are not simply subjects to a crown. We are architects of our destiny." Her words resonated with the crowd as they chanted even louder, echoing her words, reinforcing the very foundations of what they were building. A life filled with resilience, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The crowd surged forward, a rushing tide of unity unearthing the hidden strength preserved beneath layers of oppression. In the midst of the energy, Isabella could hear the whispers of those who had previously shunned her. "We can't go back," an older woman said. "Not now. Not again." The courage was infectious. It blossomed like a wildflower in the cracks of forgotten sidewalks. "We will not go back," Isabella declared, her voice cracked from the intensity of the moment, but stronger now than she had ever felt. "This moment will mark our reckoning. No longer will we cower beneath the weight of expectations. We will build a community where we stand together and lift each other up." "What shall we build?" came a voice from the crowd, a young boy with fiery spirit. "A home!" Isabella cried, that small boy igniting the conviction further. "We will nurture one another, love one another, and honor each other's paths. This is our moment to forge the futures we wish to see, where no voice is silenced and every heart is valued." "Together!" echoed the crowd, their voices harmonizing into one powerful entity. "We build together." In that moment, Isabella understood that this was more than just her story. It was theirs, a life woven together in camaraderie and shared dreams. The line of solidarity stretched before her, weaving a tapestry of hope and determination, a banner for all who dared to rise above their circumstances. Isabella looked at Jasper, who had stood firm beside her throughout her journey. His eyes shined with pride, and that was all she needed to know. She had not ventured into the woods solely to become something. She had transformed to inspire change, to become a vessel for the dreams of her community. "Let us gather," Isabella called as the crowd began to chant in support. "We will hold a council, share our voices, and forge alliances built on the strength of hope and love. Let us show this town the beauty of our unity," Mr. Thompson added, raising his voice in agreement, pouring wisdom into the embers of their rebellion. One by one, each member of the community stepped forward, ready to contribute their thoughts and dreams. Their hopes filtered through Isabella's unwavering spirit, igniting the fires of revolution. A council was born in that sacred moment, and they would meet repeatedly in the weeks to come to ensure that the voices of the marginalized were heard, to uphold their commitment to building a community of equal opportunities. In her heart, Isabella knew this was just the beginning. She no longer felt burdened by fear, and with each person stepping forward to join the movement, they formed a coalition that would challenge the status quo and pave pathways for a future steeped in dignity and connection. And so, beneath the open sky, they turned toward the horizon with hope blooming once again, resolved never to surrender to the oppressive whispers that once sought to silence them. Their voices, united, would echo through the hills, and this time the world would hear their story. They would make sure of it. "Together!" Isabella raised her fist in the air, a salute to solidarity, to resilience, to dreaming boldly. "Together, we will not falter." Though challenges would arise, the fire that had been ignited within the hearts of Isabella and her community had solidified into a flame that would light the way toward transformation. The dawn of a new era glimmered on the horizon, one filled with the promise of possibility and strength, born from the very essence of who they had become. Together they would reclaim their worth, redefine their narratives, and rise. One voice, one heartbeat, a community ignited to forge the world they deserved into reality. Under a canopy of stars, the atmosphere crackled with enthusiasm as excitement poured through the community like a cascade of light. The council meetings had taken root quickly, blossoming into dynamic discussions filled with dreams intertwined with fierce determination. All around Isabella, she witnessed the metamorphosis taking place as reluctant voices rose into a symphony of hope, a powerful testament to their unwavering unity. Days turned into weeks, and with each gathering beneath the twilight sky, the community huddled in the clearing where they could freely exchange ideas and strategies. Isabella took on the role of catalyst, guiding the conversations that flowed like a river of possibility. On some evenings, they would sit in a close circle, shadows dancing as they shared their pain, aspirations, and golden laughter, knitting together the fabric of a family reborn. "Education is our foundation," Clara proclaimed one night, standing tall among the seated members, excitement in her eyes. "We must create a curriculum that not only draws from books, but also from the experiences and history that shape us." "Agreed," another voice rang out, Pedro, a young man who had suffered greatly from the narrow confines of ignorance. "We can incorporate the stories of those that came before us. Let's write our histories ourselves, not allow one person to dictate what our children will learn." Isabella felt the swell of pride rising within her. "Exactly. It's essential for our children to see themselves reflected in their education. They must know their worth, understand their roots, and be ready to forge their paths." They crafted an initial course outline, spilling dreams onto parchment under the stars. With Clara as head of the education committee, the town began to cultivate knowledge rooted in their own identities. The lessons would no longer be dictated by fear, but instead by the strength of unity, teaching children the importance of compassion, resilience, and intelligence. As the education committee met regularly, other efforts blossomed. They established a health initiative to address the dire needs of those without access to adequate health care. Locals in the medical field organized and prepared to share their knowledge, pooling their resources to deliver care to families that had long suffered in silence. "Let's create workshops on health practices," Annabelle, a nurse, recommended one evening, her voice ringing with determination as her hands gestured passionately. "We can teach our community how to take care of one another." With each proposal and shared idea, the community's confidence burgeoned. Isabella found herself buoyed by the companionship surrounding the council, the convergence of hearts and minds echoing in harmonious belief. They even began to talk about establishing a local marketplace to support their trades, boosting self-sufficiency and breaking the monotonous cycles of dependency that had gripped them. Yet, amid this surge of progress, the omnipresent shadow of Ramon loomed large, manifesting in whispers that permeated the streets. As the council flourished, so too did his ire, and with each victory, threads of tension coiled tight around their burgeoning success. The oppressive weight of his influence weighed heavily, and he sought every opportunity to undermine their work, deploying tactics that dripped with disdain. One early morning, as the council's work began to intermingle with the rhythms of daily life, Isabella received word from a concerned neighbor. "There's talk in town, Isabella," the woman whispered with urgency painted across her face. "Ramon is organizing a gathering. He intends to sway public opinion against your council, trying to paint you as misfits stirring strife in our community." A knot twisted in her stomach. "We cannot allow fear to silence us," she asserted, her words steady despite the rising panic. "If he seeks to frame our unity as discord, then we must come together stronger than ever." Later that evening, council members assembled under the dim glow of lanterns, the air thick with tension. "We need a strategy to counter Ramon's influence," Isabella urged as the circle formed, anxiety flowing beneath her unwavering determination. "Let's hold our own gathering," Clara suggested, her enthusiasm unwavering. "We can showcase our goals and introduce each initiative we're working toward. They need to see the hope that has sprung from this council." Head nods and murmurs of agreement surged through the group, and the energy shifted toward a collective resolve. "Yes, an assembly for everyone, unity, transparency, and pride," Isabella added, her heart racing as she pictured a gathering bursting with vibrant energy, a tapestry of voices woven in celebration of their transformation. They set a date, crafting invitations that emanated warmth and collective spirit, detailing a night to celebrate their advancements. They promised to share not only plans but personal stories, sharing the struggle that had brought them to this point. The weight of fear lifted, the resilience born of their pain emerging from the darkness, shining bright with of hope. As preparations unfolded, Isabella felt a glow welling inside her. This was the moment. The gathering had the potential to shift perceptions, to drown out the whispers of fear that Ramon sought to amplify. In those days leading up to the event, she encouraged the council not only to prepare their presentations, but also to tap into their authenticity, to embrace the stories of hardship and triumph in their lives. The day of the gathering arrived, and Isabella stood before the assembled crowd, her breath catching in her throat as she saw faces familiar and unfamiliar alike. "Welcome, friends, family, and neighbors," she began, her voice steady, infused with warmth. "Tonight we celebrate not just our initiatives, but the heart that beats within our community." The gathered townsfolk murmured back, a gentle wave of support washing over her, filling Isabella with fierce pride. She could see the faces of parents clutching their children, elders leaning in to listen, and skeptics beginning to soften. She took a deep breath, the moment alive with electric anticipation, as she introduced each committee, elucidating their goals infused with personal stories that connected them all. Clara spoke passionately about the education initiative, capturing hearts with stories of children who had struggled to see their own worth in a world that had belittled them. Annabelle shared tales of families that had suffered in silence, her voice laced with compassion and determination, as she outlined the health initiative that would empower neighbors to care for one another. Each voice rang clear, each story a thread through the fabric of their solidarity. The evening crackled with energy and empathy, a tapestry woven anew that spanned generations and connected their shared struggles, dreams, and aspirations. But in the shadows, Ramon stood vigilant, plotting under furrowed brows and narrowed eyes. He could not tolerate the taste of revolt, especially not in the form of a community learning to wield its own power. As the gathering reached its climax, Isabella's expression turned earnest. "We are here to uplift each other and to reclaim our rightful place in this community. Together we stand against fear, oppression, and disparity. We are no longer the silenced. We are the voices of resilience." Applause erupted, and waves of cheers rolled through the crowd. "Together, together," the chant echoed, asserting the unbreakable bond forged within that clearing. Their stories entwined, they were no longer defined by a singular struggle. This was the birth of a newfound legacy, one of collaboration, connection, and resilience. Isabella glanced toward the horizon, the fiery hues of the setting sun painting a promise of potential upon the canvas of tomorrow. Yet she could see Ramon fuming at the fringes. With each smile in the crowd, she felt the weight of his disapproval, his anger palpable. The path forward would not be without challenges, but she found comfort in the strength that surrounded her. They were a gathering storm, and she stood at its helm, ready to lead the charge against whatever darkness sought to derail their progress. For now, however, they tasted victory. They could already feel the winds shifting, the tide rising, and a new dawn that awaited them just beyond the horizon, and together they would not falter, nor would they turn back. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as the gathered townsfolk began to disperse under the cloak of night, each carrying the weight of hope ignited by Isabella's words. She felt exhilarated, but also knew that the true test of their resolve was just beginning. Ramon's shadow loomed larger than life, and she was acutely aware that he would not easily relinquish his power over the community. As the days passed, tension thickened in the air. Isabella and her council continued their meetings, strategizing to counteract the fallout of Ramon's influence. They shared their stories and forged plans rooted in unity to uplift every voice in the town. Yet an edge of unease crept in. Whispers hinted at Ramon's schemes, hardening their resolve. One evening, a member of the council named Teo burst into their meeting, wide-eyed with urgency. "I heard Ramon is gathering merchants and town leaders. He plans to turn them against us, spreading lies that we're trying to divide the community." Isabella's gut twisted. This was the provocation they had been preparing for. "We can't let him undermine our work. If he holds a public meeting, we must stand firm," she declared, determination fueling her voice. "We need to counteract his lies with the truth." The council rallied around her, their spirits igniting with a collective fire. "We'll demonstrate our commitments," Clara exclaimed passionately. "We'll share our progress and let the townsfolk feel our unity." Within days, they organized their own gathering, inviting every person in the community to come together beneath the stars. Isabella felt both anxious and invigorated. This was their moment to lay bare the truth of their efforts and the genuine spirit of collaboration that was thriving amongst them. On the day of the public meeting, the sun dipped low, casting an orange glow on the faces of the gathered crowd. Ramon stood at the forefront, his eyes glinting with animosity. "People of our town, we must unite against this council that threatens our way of life. Their ideas will divide us and tear apart our traditions." With a deep breath, Isabella stepped forward into the light, her heart racing but her resolve unshaken. "No, Ramon, we are not here to divide. We are here to uplift every voice, to ensure that every person matters in our community." Her words rang clear, and she sensed the tide begin to shift as faces turned toward her, absorbing her passion. "This council is not an enemy but a source of strength. We stand together against fear and oppression. Our goal is unity through collaboration." Isabella's voice grew stronger, bolstered by the supportive murmurs of the crowd. As town members began to share their own stories, recounting experiences and struggles with hard-earned victories, the energy shifted dramatically. They each stepped forward, relatives, friends, mentors, and Carolyn's voice joined in, echoing Isabella's sentiments, affirming their mission, and affirming that they represented the community's resilience. The crowd's earlier tension melted into energy, and voices of solidarity filled the air, drowning out Ramon's protestations. "We won't be silent," echoed through the square, a unified declaration pulsing with strength and truth. In those moments, Ramon's facade began to crack. Frustration washed over his face, but he couldn't withstand the onslaught of a community freshly ignited in resilience and courage. Seeing Isabella stand tall in the light, empowered, he could feel the power slipping through his fingers. As the evening unfolded, the crowd continued to rally around them, and Isabella empowered them further. "Together we reclaim our stories. Together we forge a new path forward." But Ramon raised his voice in desperation, attempting to regain control. "You think these stories will protect you? The townsfolk know it's safer to cling to tradition, to the past." Determined, Isabella pushed back. "We aren't asking for permission. We're claiming our legacy right here now. Love, strength, and compassion bind us far more than hollow traditions that seek to silence our progress." With every word that traversed the air, her community's resolve solidified. They would not back down. United in their truths, they emerged not as victims, but as a powerful force ready to reclaim their lives, their narratives, and their town. The night closed in around them, charged with purpose, and Isabella felt the warmth of solidarity within her as Ramon's power dimmed, struggling against the tide of their collective will. At that moment, she knew they had ignited a fire that would not be extinguished, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, whatever storms brewed on the horizon, they would rise, not just endure, but thrive, knowing their truth was on their side, unstoppable as they reclaimed their destinies and the very future of their community.